Hello and welcome to Matching Mom Genes, where identical twins explore divergent paths of motherhood born of the same roots. Join us as we navigate this crazy world of parenting, proving that even with identical DNA, our journeys are still unique. Get ready for laughs, insights, and a double dose of maternal mayhem.
Woohoo! Speaking of unique,
Oh,
today's
and
topic
mayhem.
and mayhem. Exactly. So we're just gonna jump right in because I have a million questions about this. You need
I have a
to
huge announcement, a huge milestone announcement.
yes, go for it.
Today was our last day of my daughter's kindergarten Eingewöhnung.
Go ahead. Go ahead, say that again louder for the people in the back.
Eingewöhnung. It means settling in. And it has been, I kid you not, over a month, like almost exactly 5 weeks of this like slow ease settle in to life as a kindergartner in the kita. And I am a true believer now because of the way this week has gone, like this like I guess first like real week. Which she's still technically I picked her up an hour earlier than
Okay,
I
yeah.
could have.
So
So
so you're
it wasn't
stretching it
the
a little bit.
fullest day it could be, but that was because I was gonna go to the garden center and homegirl loves a garden center, so I wasn't gonna go
That's
without
valid.
her. So I was just
That's
like, you know
valid.
what? It's 2:30. Like I'm just gonna go
Yeah.
pick her up. We're gonna have a little moment. And that's part of why I work part-time. So but this whole process has been maybe one of the most foreign. I mean, it's been foreign because I don't speak the language that they speak at kindergarten. But it's been like one of the most foreign experiences. It's contrary to everything that I know about like the American school system.
Yeah. And so that's where I want to stop you for a second. First off, let's just address the elephant in the room. What does the word translate to?
It translates to settling in.
Settling in. Okay, so that's the energy they're bringing to starting school. I love that. It's
Yeah,
not like jumping off the deep end. It's like slowly getting your toes wet and going in.
and there are apparently different methods used throughout Germany, but in the state of Hessen where we live, um, the the Berliner method is like the common method of
Which is
Angewohnung use.
fascinating because that was a tiny footnote in one of my child development classes. Like tiny. Like in Europe, you sometimes see this method. And
And it's
like
like,
it's
no, it's the way we're doing
fascinating.
it.
Yeah, exactly. And so then let's kind of I have one more question for clarity. When you say kindergarten, you are not
No,
referring
yes.
to American kindergarten.
No, the Germans invented kindergarten. So when I say kindergarten, I mean from the purest
The real
form of the
one.
word kindergarten.
OG
Um,
kindergarten.
OG kindergarten. So kindergarten in Germany is 2 to 6 years old, all those ages in the same room. It is focused on social skills, safety skills, um, table manners, toilet training, language skills.
So
I mean,
almost what we
weeks
wish
of
that preschool would be, but preschool isn't able to be in a lot of times.
I don't I don't know because I don't have an American preschooler, but I
That's
hear
fair.
complaints of things like my child didn't need to know how to read. They need to know how to not bite people. Like those kinds of
Yes. No,
things.
that's
Yeah.
exactly. And like as a parent and as somebody who works with lower income families, like a lot of times preschool unfortunately just ends up being like daycare plus the alphabet song. Um, and if there was a way, like even,
I
I've actually
mean,
heard
don't
praises
don't
of
get me
some
wrong.
programs because some programs can do as far as like, here's how you button your pants. Like, the bar is kind of low. So I like this idea of like German kindergarten. And I like that they're all in the same room.
Oh, and it's wonderful too because for my daughter especially, she's an only child. And she is 2.5. So she is one of the youngest. She's not the youngest. There's a set of twins that are a few months younger than her.
Woohoo!
Um, but but she is one of the youngest in the class, and you can see in her eyes, like she just already just has so much admiration for some of the bigger kids in her class. And like, so, she sits down at a table and it's hard for her to sit still, but they're sitting still.
Yeah.
And there's a little
Well,
herd
and that
mentality
age
there.
gap. that 2 to 6 age gap is exactly what I've lived for the last year, because now we're about to have 3 and
Right.
7. But, that
Yeah.
4-year age gap, it is personally, I'm very much so biased in this, but I hear people talk about like having a 2-year age gap and how that's like the perfect thing. But I would not trade our 4-year age gap for anything, because
4-year age gap is actually really common here in Germany. If families choose to have a second child, most German households are only one child,
ooh, that's
statistically.
fun.
Like just over 50% is only one child.
I
Probably
actually wish
because,
I knew. Sorry.
it's like one of those things where, your child plays so much with the children around them in their community, in their kita. And so like there's not that like, but who would they play with?
Yeah, it's not the individualized, like kind of isolated. And that's something that I would love to talk about one day and dig into a little bit of, like, in America, the culture of like the family unit being this isolated little island, versus stuff you have literally talked about and we're going to get into. So walk me through what you were told settling in. I'm just going to say settling. I can't say the word.
That's fine.
Um,
Angewohnung is a very intense word to spell too, and I
Eingewangen.
have typed it many, many, many times because every time I have to send my boss an email about it. So,
Copy
basically, let's
paste.
let's let's walk through the process first. First of all, it's important to note that, only one parent is, like, primary during the Angewohnung process.
So kind of like
So
dog training. Like you have to choose the primary, like you're the
that
authority.
is a great way to look at it, honestly.
I mean, I'm not, I'm learning, like, the primary parent versus default parent conversation. And like, sometimes you need that primary parent to be like, no,
Well,
you're the final rule here.
yes, it eases it. And so, but before the process starts, they want both parents to come in for a meeting. So my husband was present for the
Oh, that's
meeting
good.
where we discussed our goals, what we thought would be the concerns. I mean, we got deep into some details about my daughter. Like at one point, they asked me to write like her birth story and underline anything that might have been traumatic for
Hey,
her.
I love that.
And I'm like,
I ask those questions with my families now. Like I have a session after this, and like it's with a new family and it's with some domestic violence conflict, and like I always go back and start. I'm like, "Okay, tell me about what happened during your pregnancy." And they always look at me like I'm crazy, but it matters. It matters to know
well,
the whole story.
does it though? So it was a little weird.
We like
I
to
was like,
pretend it
they were
does.
like,
We like to
they were
pretend it
like,
does.
how was she born? And of course, like most of these questions are in German, and so we're like, does that question mean what I think it means? And they're like, no. Then the teacher translating for us is like, oh, how was she born? And I was like,
They took her out of
uh,
me.
surgically. And she goes, oh, it's cesarean. And I was like, okay, good, you know that word.
Good. Yeah, because I mean, like, that's a very valid question. Sometimes you say
Surgically.
cesarean. Sometimes I was actually in front of a lawyer, I guess a couple years ago, and somebody asked something about plans for delivery or something, and somebody said cesarean, and he goes, "What's that? I only know about C sections."
Oh,
And
that's what the C in
I was
C-section
like,
stands
those,
for,
yeah,
sweetheart.
there you go, buddy. So,
That's
all right, so you
amazing.
did your
So
interview
anyway,
and
so
you
you do
got
the
deep.
interview with both parents, and then they give you a range with like a minimum of 3 weeks. Minimum
Okay.
of 3 weeks. They
Wow.
say about 3 to 6 weeks, so we're right on par with that, especially with next week, being the week that we're expecting, where she's gonna be there just a little bit later than she's been now. There's a big, trip next week, which she may or may not go on because of my anxiety.
I mean,
Um, we'll
we've
talk about
discussed
it, we'll
that
talk
trip.
about it.
I vote.
It's a
I
whole
vote
thing.
no.
Well, okay, we'll
From
get there, we'll
across
get
the
there.
pond.
But basically, you go together with your child for the first week.
So you attend
I
as an
attended.
adult.
Her first day was also my first day of German kindergarten.
Please tell
It
me you did a
was
picture with a chalkboard. I forgot to ask you this question.
I did not, but I would. I would
You
have. I
should
would have.
have.
I did post on my social media that it was my first day of German kindergarten, and oh my gosh, the joy in my heart. It was amazing. So basically, we went and they told us what time to be there. Now, they told me what time to be there in German, and Germans do time very differently. So they told me to come after 8, is what they said.
Okay.
But
So
the
like
way Germans
8:15,
time, well,
8:30.
You would think. The way Germans do time, for example, like 8:30, the word that they would use is halb neun, half nine.
Okay. Oh,
So
okay.
when they told me to be there after 8, and I thought it was like 8:30, what it was actually was after 9 or 9:30. So we showed up early. We were
Oh
very inconvenient. We kind of got put in a corner for a little bit, like literally put in a corner for a little bit. Like and there I got warned that this was going to throw my daughter off and all this stuff because we
no. Oh,
arrived
you are wrong, lady. But
breakfast. I almost just said the German word for breakfast, and I'm not entirely sure I know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to stay away from that. But the children were eating breakfast.
okay.
Um, and that was apparently a terrible first impression to give my daughter because she just had to sit still. I think she did fine. She just basically stared at the children. They stared at her. We sat in a corner. It was a whole thing. And then
Exciting. It's
after
like going
breakfast,
going to
they
the
showed up to
aquarium.
brush their teeth, but of course they weren't ready for us to be there. So they didn't have a toothbrush for my daughter, and that was probably the worst part of it. But basically, you stay
Pause.
for an hour.
Does it make me a bad person that my first thought was, you don't have a diaper bag toothbrush?
I didn't even have a diaper bag. I was supposed to show up with my child,
Oh,
and that's it. So I showed up with my car key in my pocket and my child, and that's it.
wow. You didn't have any of your, like, because I'm like a creature comfort mother. I don't go anywhere without my diaper bag. Like it was the hardest part of like being right on the verge of like 4 where you don't really need it while I was pregnant with the youngest. And like I would follow our older one around and I was like, I don't have a diaper bag and this is stressful. Like I'm emotionally attached to mine.
We don't carry things that we don't need around here. So
That's fair. Okay, so
But yeah, so literally she we watched them brush our teeth, and then we went to circle time, which is where we should have started the day. So
okay.
you go, you spend an hour, and that hour, once we showed up the correct time the next day, was basically circle time altogether, which varies a little bit each day, and then they go directly outside to play, especially because it's
Oh, so
warm right
that's a good
now. So
impression. Yeah.
it's a good impression and it's a good opportunity for her to organically interact with the children. And so then the
Yeah. Like
first
welcome to the fun place.
step, like the first milestone, which they didn't tell us what these milestones were before, they just told us what the milestones were when when we met them. They were like, "Oh, she
Oh.
has blah blah blah. That means we're ready for the next step." And I'm like, "Why didn't I know
Oh
what this?"
no.
I guess because they didn't want me to like push them or fake
Force
them
it.
or whatever.
Yeah, they're
But
like, Americans
so
can't be trusted with this information.
the first milestone is her playing with other children. So
Oh,
that's why
that's
they want you to
nice.
come at that time because they want her first milestone to be playing with other children.
Okay.
Now, we won the lottery, and our child's class has two English speakers in it.
Woo!
Two little girls who also speak English, and
Now
um,
there's 3.
and are super outgoing. So
Perfect.
that has worked out
I
really
couldn't
well
think
for
of nothing better. I
us.
could think of nothing
So
better.
So yeah, so the first few days I go with her and we
Okay.
just go for just 1 hour. And by the third day of doing that, my daughter is like visibly upset when we have to leave at our hour mark. Like, so the teacher comes over, tells us that it's time to go, and I call for my daughter and tell her that we need to, change our shoes because they wear Hausschuhe. So, like not outside shoes. So I tell her that we need to like change our shoes and we'll go home. And she's like, no, stay and play. And that's apparently also a really
Aw.
good sign. So
Yay!
that was great. So that was
My
great.
child would be
So,
left at my child would be left at Kita the first time. First day.
right, right.
Bye.
So then the next step, and that was kind of part of it too, is I was like, I see where like the heart of this method is, but it was hard for me because I'm like, my daughter is coming off of a, you know, sayonara, I've got to go to work. See
Yeah.
you after a full day. And this felt more like library story time. And so I was
Yeah,
like,
it's a
how
little
do we get there?
confusing. Yeah.
Well, and the way we get there is the next time you go to like 2 hours
Okay.
and you, as the parent, are asked to step away. Like somebody will come get you. And so you have to like go. Like one
Oh.
day it was they needed something, they were out of something, and they were like, could you run to the office and get this for us? And I'm like, I don't speak German, but okay. And they're like, it's just a
Why
QR
do I have to
code.
do this?
Oh, okay.
It's busy work, ma'am. It's busy
Well,
work.
I was like, can I? They were like, can you do this? And I was like, can I? Did does somebody in there speak English? And they were like, yes, you're fine. Okay. And I was like, oh, okay, got it. Because but at the same time, I was learning a lot of German.
Oh, I
Like,
bet.
because I would have to like help direct my child in the same thing. And so, like, when they go get ready,
Because
like
the whole thing
at
is
circle
in
time,
German.
and
It's
they're,
not
yes,
English.
they're speaking only German.
Okay.
And so, unless
Jeez.
one day they did tell me, they were like, when we tell her to sit down, she doesn't listen to us unless we say it in English. And I was like, well, she doesn't actually speak German yet. So that might be what that might be coming. I don't think
My
that's
dog my
insubordinate
dog
at this
would also
point.
do that, ma'am.
I
If
was
you
like,
holler at my dog sit down in German, he's not gonna sit down either.
not even babies or dogs. Me. Like, would I know? I don't know. Wo ist dein Platz? Wo ist dein Platz?
Oh,
Okay.
no.
That is
Nope.
where is your seat? Where
That
is your
would not
seat?
Oh, and it's not even like sit down. It's a question, dude. Not
So,
okay.
um, but I learned that one pretty quick. I
Yeah,
learned
yeah.
sitzen and stop.
Oh, stop. I like that one. Stop.
There's singen, spielen, tanzen. They would have the children vote on rainy days whether or not they were going to sing or dance or play.
Oh, love
Yeah,
that. Love a little
singen, tanzen,
democracy happening.
spielen.
Okay,
But I mean,
so
so anyway, so they
you
have you
step
step
away.
away for a little bit. Then they add in breakfast.
Ooh,
And breakfast is kind of a big hurdle because um like we pack it. And
okay.
so in the morning we pack the breakfast in her brot box, which is like a small, like, picture half a bento box.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
it's really small. But
Where did you
um
buy the box?
at the toy store here in Germany.
Okay, good. Just
Because
questioning.
they have
Like,
thousands of the different varieties.
okay, good.
I need to buy more than one. I'm gonna go back to the store and get, like, the same one that I've got, because
Yeah.
if we
Well,
start
that was
changing
my
colors on
fear.
her, it's gonna be a whole thing.
I was afraid you were gonna say the school gave it to you, and I was like, what happens if you lose it?
Oh, no. No, 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 no. And I like it because it fits right in her backpack, which I did not get in Germany. I got in Target. You sent it to me
I did.
because
I
I
did mail
liked it.
that. I did mail that. Came
That's
to
what
my
it's
house.
called. That's called having
My
connections.
my
Um,
husband constantly talks about your Target because they're in my name. Obviously, they come to my house under my name, and he's like, "You shop at Target so much," and I'm like, "When did I start shopping at Target?" And he's like, "In last fall," and I'm like, "Who moved out of the United States last fall?" And he was like,
like, we're
"Oh,
not
it's."
buying things from
He's like,
Target. We're a Target way station, okay? Because Target won't ship to Germany, and there's just some things that cannot be replaced, okay?
Yeah, he thought it was a mental health check-in because he's like, "You miss your
Oh,
sister so much, you're buying things on Target."
no.
I'm like,
I don't even
"No."
know these packages are showing up until the day that she texts me and says, "By the way, there's a package
And
on
it's
your
a
porch. It's
surprise.
mine. It's a Taylor Swift exclusive CD. Thank you."
Please mail it.
So anyway, so we have to pack it, and traditionally there's no sugar, but
Okay.
it's both traditionally here in Germany, but also it's actually like a school rule: no sugar before Mittag, which is lunch. So
I mean, that's a
you can't have
valid that
any
should be a rule at
sugar,
my house too.
but that means that you can't have like muffins or
Oh.
anything like that, because all muffins in Germany are cupcakes. They're
Yeah.
all too sweet. They don't do them. And so we we have been doing an open faced peanut butter sandwich and about 4 cut strawberries. That's what we've been
That's what I
doing.
was gonna say. I was like, a cheese stick?
Well, because traditionally it's meat and cheese and bread. That's what like some of the more traditional students eat. There is a type of wurst that is like a spreadable Viennese sausage. That's the only way I can
Ew.
describe it.
Nope. Mm-mm. Nope. It's
I
like
can't do it. I
spam but
can't do it.
liquid. No thanks. Liquid spam and spray cheese. That's better than sugar.
We're not here to discuss food choices, but yeah. Um, so, so so we're packing that lunch. So, what they didn't know when they told me that how difficult this was going to be, what they didn't know is that we have been practicing because we've known about
Got that inside
um,
track.
we've known about this transition to Kita for 6 months, and I bought the broad box in March,
Oh,
and
see, yes.
we have been practicing opening it and closing ourselves because it's got a latch,
Oh, that's a good
and
deal.
eating out of it, and then putting anything that we don't finish back in there because we get the food scraps home. Trash in Germany is like a very big thing, and so we can't increase like the trash or recycling load at the Kita with anything we send. Like you
Oh,
can't send
interesting.
individual yogurt cups, for example, because that needs to
Yeah,
be rinsed and recycled, and that would increase their load, and it's like a whole thing.
makes
Um,
sense.
so it has to come home with you, which means your child has to remember to put it in the box, and so and she's 2, she's
No,
2, like
yeah.
she's almost 2.5, but she's still 2.
She's 2, like, with a hard 2, like, hard 2, not almost 3, hard 2.
Yeah,
Like, no.
haven't even had the half birthday yet, just 2. So, yeah, so we had practice, so that went surprisingly well. The issues,
Nice.
with the breakfast transition were, I want what they have and not what's in my box. That's when we
Ooh,
started to commit heavy to the strawberries because strawberries are, basically, like, the highest of highest treat ever.
yeah,
She loves them, so I just started adding more and more and more strawberries to her box so that she would be interested in her box and not anybody else's box.
valid,
Um,
super valid. I do that with shaky cheese.
she's going to be a little
If
bit pink if she continues to eat them at the rate that she's consuming them, but thankfully it is strawberry season right
I was
now.
about to say, you're gonna be screwed in November.
Yeah, well, she also loves an orange, and oranges are here year round, so we're good.
Okay, that's good. I'm
But
glad you've thought that far in advance.
yeah,
So
I thought
after
about it.
eating so after
So
eating
after eating, they brush their teeth and
okay.
wash their hands and then go to circle time. And so it was amazing to watch my daughter's transition, like make those major transitions because I mean anyone that has a toddler or a kid in general knows that like in an hour we're getting there, we're changing shoes, we're
Which
sitting
that
down at a
I
table,
mean, that right
opening
there,
a
the changing of shoes would be a meltdown at my house. Like, "No, no, the shoes are on. It took us 30 minutes to get them on. Let's not take these suckers off."
There are
Like,
literally some mornings where I'm like, why do I have to put shoes on you just to take you there so that you can put more shoes
but
on?
that's a country culture thing, right? That's not a school
Yes,
thing. That's everybody. You don't wear your
that's
shoes in
you just
the
don't wear your
house.
shoes in people's houses because shoes are nasty.
I mean, that's
Um,
very valid. It's never
so
gonna happen at my house because at this point, if they have their shoes on, they're leaving them on until they're unconscious. Done.
we allow shoes on our first floor
Oh,
because
that's a
you
good
have to
middle
like
ground.
we have the patio to the back door in the backyard and it's on the other side, exactly the opposite side of the house to the front door. And so but then we have like these carpeted stairs and I'm not letting dirt go up the carpeted stairs. So you have to take your
There
shoes
you
off
go.
before you go up the stairs. So that's just kind of how we do it. It's like a hybrid approach. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's a good
so
middle
there's
ground.
like all these transitions, but overall my daughter's doing really really well. And apparently the key there is can she stay at her table the way that she's supposed to? Can she, like, put her stuff, get her stuff out of her backpack to eat breakfast, put her stuff back in her backpack afterwards, um, and then like make the transition, sit
Yeah.
and brush her teeth with her other classmates. Those kinds of like just basic following direction things. I felt like she did that really really well from the get go.
That's good.
Maybe because she had seen it since day one. I don't know.
I
It wasn't
mean,
a
yeah.
surprise for her.
Yeah.
And so
We
then
showed up
basically
early,
from
so we got
there,
a
they just
preview.
extend the time, both that she is there and the time that she is there with you like outside the room. So they have like a little
Okay.
table with like some water and stuff. So I brought my laptop several times and worked from there. One
So like a
day
slow
I
fade.
yeah, one day I was working there and another mom came,
Ooh, exciting.
who was also in transition. Um,
Nice. You
And
guys
so we
settled in
talked a little bit
together.
about our children, but, she was from Russia and only spoke German and Russian, and I am from America, and I speak very little German and English, and
Not a
so
lot of
our
overlap there.
conversations were limited to basics because that's how
Not
much
a
German
lot of
I
overlap.
know.
So yeah, so you brought up an important thing before we finish the step down. Like you had to work, but for 3 weeks at the least. And you mentioned like emailing your boss and like, but
Oh
I
yeah,
imagine that
I took a lot of PTO off.
I was about to say you're not really getting like a here's my vacation days for the next month to give your boss. You're like finding out as she passes milestones. Like, "Oh, hey, I'm suddenly
Yes.
available tomorrow afternoon."
Well, literally, so it was like, you know, we kind of settled into learned that, um, my daughter's teacher kind of thought that, like, she kind of had a 3-day rule.
Okay.
And so you could kind of anticipate like, okay, this worked today, so for the next 2 days, this is gonna look like, and I only work 3 days a week, and so it was
Oh,
kind
that's
of
nice.
like, maybe next week it'll be different, like those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um, and so it wasn't horrible, but it was very much so a communication thing.
I do have a
And
question about like, do they ever go backwards? Like, if your child does really well the first 2 weeks, but then suddenly is having meltdowns, do you restart the process or do you like go back a step? Like, that sounds
it
miserable.
would never be a restart. It would be a stay where you are until they're comfortable where they are. And that did
Okay.
actually happen with us. The first week, so like I guess 2 weeks ago, that I would like not be there for any period of time at all. Cause so I was coming and then it was just like, I'd stay for like 20 minutes and then I'd leave for an hour, or I'd be there for 20 minutes and I leave for 2 hours, or, those kinds of things. But the first time
Yeah.
that I actually just like dropped her off, sat with her until another child come to play with her, like that's one of the rules is they have to be playing when you leave. And so
Valid.
sometimes I'm like, go look at that over there.
Mommy's got to get to work. Have you seen that toy over there with wheels?
Literally. Um, but so we do that, and then she was fine. She did not cry when I left. That's a good sign. She ate her breakfast. That was a good sign. But when I came to pick her up, um, it was the third day. So we were supposed to go up the next time, which would have been trying to eat lunch. Okay. And that's a big transition too. But when I came to get her, they were like, we were going to stay here for a couple days. And I was like, why? And they were like, because when she's outside on the playground, um, she will occasionally just cry for you. Like, not tears, but she'll just be like, where's my mama? And I'm like, do
Yeah.
you know that she asked my husband that when I'm in the shower?
Right. I
Um,
was about to say
like,
that wouldn't work in my family because my son is actually currently with his friend and one of my friends
well,
and
and they
they're hanging out, but like he asks like every 10 minutes, "Hey, when's mom coming back?" And she just tells him and keeps going. But like eh.
Well, and so they gave me advice to talk to her more specifically about when I would be back. So for a
Okay.
few days, I said, like, and we would talk about like what I was doing and where I was and what, and so like, just more
Aw.
communication, more communication. And so
Yeah.
then a few days later, they were like, today she asked where you were. And I was like, oh no, we're going to go backwards. And they were like, but then she said, Mama is coming back at lunch.
There we
Like, so she
go.
asked the question, but she answered it herself, and she
Yes,
was not
okay.
visibly upset, and they were like, "That is where what we wanna see, that's that self-assurance of, we don't
She's
have
coming
to
back.
tell her your mother's coming back, but she knows that you're coming back.
Oh.
She feels comfortable, her mind is settled enough for her to reach that to herself."
She can think.
So,
She can think through
again,
it.
we're settling in, we're settling in. And so from there you do lunch. That was about a week of us doing lunch, and then the next transition is after lunch is nap time. And
Okay.
this is what I was really worried about because when she was at her previous daycare on base, sometimes she still wouldn't nap. You know what I mean? Like you just pick her up and she didn't nap or whatever. Um, and their rule is since there's 2 years old to 6 years old, the 6 year olds are not napping.
Yeah.
Everyone lays down um, in like there's like a darker room with like a sound machine that's like children napping. And then there's like a peaceful chill out for like a half
Yeah.
hour and then they do crafts. Um,
Cool.
And so, but every day this week, she has napped for at least an hour and a half.
Wow.
And so that
That's
means a
incredible.
lot. Yeah, and that's I mean, that's what she naps at home is about an hour and a
Yeah.
half. And so, of course, when we did our big, huge interview and our paperwork and stuff, they knew that that's kind of what we were seeing at home, and so that's kind of what we were expecting. Um, and it has left feeling really good. The other really, really big signs are things I missed was like one of the big milestones they told me about was her letting somebody else change her diaper.
Ooh, valid.
Like just like they call her name and say it's your turn, and she just comes and gets her diaper changed.
Yeah, because I
Now
didn't think
apparently
about
she's
that.
got preferences. She'll be like, "No, not you," and she'll like ask another teacher to change her diaper. I don't know what that's about, but they're like,
I
she's
mean,
letting at least one person in the room change her diaper.
my question is, does she prefer the English speaking teacher to change her diaper or the
Yep.
non English speaking teacher? See, okay.
Yup.
Honestly, if someone was babbling at me in a different language while they were undressing me, I would be a little upset. So I
That's
would
fair.
accept the English speaking. I mean, can you imagine if you
Another
went to go get like a pap smear and the person was just speaking a different language at you the whole time?
I mean, that's a good example. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's so true.
Yeah,
Um,
I support her choices on that one.
well, and I mean, the teacher that she wants all the time and the teacher that she asks for and the teacher she talks about the most is just genuinely like maybe an angel on earth. I don't know. Like she's one of the most
That's good.
I genuinely would like to sit and have a cup of coffee with her. You know what I mean? Like
Like,
she's just
hi, can you be my
genuinely a
friend too?
literally and she's got one of those voices that like she missed her calling as an ICU nurse or something, you know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah,
she's just
valid.
like sing-songy a little bit.
Ooh, love
So
that.
other milestones are like letting a teacher help you. Like
Okay.
if your mother is there but you still let another adult help you,
Ooh, that's a
great
big like
sign.
social emotional learning milestone here as well.
Yes.
Like, and it's something that often like it won't stop you from being promoted from preschool to kindergarten or from kindergarten to first grade, but it's like a massive red flag if like you're not asking for help and like verbalizing your needs. So I
Yeah.
mean like
Well,
that's
and you're
such a
not
good
going
skill for
to
her
the
to have at that
person
age.
to them it was that she needs to recognize who actually has the power to help her there,
Ooh, I
like
like
who
that.
is in charge. It's like
Yeah,
and
like
so
identifying the teacher. When I did I wrote a course that was like for parents in the pandemic who had preschoolers and were like trying to get their kids ready basically for like kindergarten without any prep and without any formal training or anything. And a massive part of that was, does your child understand who's the authority? Like point it out to them. Like, hey, there's a crossing guard. He's in charge, even though I'm driving the car. Hey, I'm not driving the car. Dad is. He's in charge of the car. Like
right,
who's
like
the
that's a
leader
real
here?
thing.
And so like and I literally was telling parents like, go to Walmart and point out there's a person talking on the loudspeaker right now. That's the person in charge. Go to the library. This is the person in charge, not me. I'm just here in the audience. So
Right,
I
like,
love that
the
that's like a
person reading the
big
story,
deal.
I am also subject to her, like, we're
Yes.
listening, that kind of thing, and for us, that milestone actually occurred, when we went on our first excursion.
Oh, I
So,
can't wait to
1
hear
day
about
a
this.
week,
I
I'm not
know
gonna
about
say it
this,
on the
but
podcast, but 1 day a week, the entire class goes on an excursion. So, instead of
oh, it's
playing on the
weekly?
playground that morning it's every week,
Oh
and then the
no.
magnitude of the excursions go, ebb and flow. Like one day they will like go on a larger excursion, kind of like I went with them, or an even bigger excursion like they may be going on next week. Um, they are going on whether or not my daughter goes on is a different story. It's a whole
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. I mean, because
um,
even what you did, even the one you did,
yeah.
like you
So
were keeping me abreast of that, and that
and
was
that's like the
stressful.
trip that I went on mirrored the trip that my daughter did with them this week. So basically, they left um, the Kita, and they all took a bus to a park in town. They kind
And
of
you
cycle
don't
through the
mean
different
school
parks.
bus. You don't
No,
mean
I
school
mean
bus.
public bus. I mean there's a
Yeah.
bus stop outside of Kita, so they have to cross a road, um, get on a public bus. In Germany, kindergarten teachers and their classes ride the bus for free. So you have
Nice.
one adult for every 25 children rides free.
No
Um,
thanks. No
I
thanks.
think technically, right, that's a lot of children.
That's a bad
Um,
that's a bad ratio, man.
and so when I went with them, I was like, this is the most wild thing ever. And meanwhile, my daughter is like vibrating with excitement because the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
kid is going on the bus, the bus, the bus. It's so exciting. And several of
Everyone's
the
on the
other
bus
children
together.
several of the other
Like
children
field
are
trip
freaking
vibes.
out because they got told that morning which playground they were going to, and apparently it's one of the superior playgrounds. So I am honored to have
Oh,
got to go on this trip. Um,
bless.
but so we like literally like get on a bus, and then we take the bus to a bus stop, and then we walk a few blocks to the park. And
Mm-mm.
then outside the park, my daughter's teacher in German gives a speech that had me shaking in my boots about staying in the gates of the park.
Oh, that's like me and my kids. There's a fenced in splash pad, and I do the like reverse Liam Neeson of like I will find you and I will kill you. It's like I will find you and you will wish that I
You
was
had
somewhere
stayed in the
else.
yes, yes. Well, that's kind of how this one is because it's not fully fenced in. There's, like, these big, big holes in the fence to make it look cool, like bubbles, but, of
No
course, it's
thanks.
not very secure.
No thanks.
So yeah, and then she just they all agree, and then they all run into the park and go a lot of different ways, but while we were at that park, the main teacher kinda, like, posted up at the, ladder kind of thing to climb up
Oh,
to go up
fun.
the slide. So it's like the ladder and then you go up a couple
She's
big
like, this is
platforms
where
to go
I'm
up the
gonna
slide.
sit.
Well, and that was obviously where, most of the younger children needed
Needed
like
help.
help with them. Even some of the older children. It was a pretty big ladder. I mean, German
We do
playgrounds are
that at
not known for being chill.
We do that at my son's gymnastics class. Like we all take a station because
Yeah.
inevitably like my son's the shortest in his class, he's youngest by like a year, and he can't reach the bar that they all do their swings on. And so
Yeah.
like someone has to pick him up every time. So we just now all take turns like posting up where we need to be. So I get that vibe.
So it was a really big milestone when my daughter got in line to be
Ooh.
helped up the ladder by the main teacher to go down the slide by herself. And so that was,
Aww.
like, such a big and it was, like I'm, like, sitting there, I'm, like, taking pictures, like like, on my
Look at
phone.
what
I'm
she's
like, "Huh?"
doing.
And I'm, like, texting to my husband. I'm like, "Look, she's letting her help her. This is so big." But it was so cool. And then, then she lines him up. At one point, the teacher lined him up on like a disabled water fountain thing. Like it used to be a pond, I guess. I don't know. But like lined them all up, handed them all a cookie, and then pulled a bunch of cups out of her backpack and a bottle of water and like gave them all a splash of water.
Wow.
I was like, oh my gosh. It was like she was like the lead duck and had
I was
like
about to
20 duck
say
eggs.
it
Um,
feels like
it was
how
amazing.
how my friend and I she has like 34 like chicks and ducks and things like that we've been taking care of, and like that's exactly what that feels like, is like the organized chaos of like everyone needs food, everyone needs water, stay to your lane.
Literally. It felt a little bit, and because they have to walk 2 by 2, they pair an older child with a younger child.
Like
And because they have to walk 2 by 2,
Oh,
it's very Madeline, but they just don't have matching outfits.
I
Did
just
you
knocked my
literally
mic.
knock your microphone over because you were so excited at the thought of saying Madeline?
I was so excited. I hope it didn't make a really loud noise. My bad. Oh,
So,
Madeline
but
2 by 2.
But yeah, so and like I don't know, I started out the process like, okay, here we're gonna do this. And then like a little bit into it, I was like, okay, this is taking forever. And I
Yeah.
feel like I need to get to work and like all this stuff. But I had one of my German coworkers, um, who said, this is a very special time for your family. And I'm glad that you're taking the time to really like enjoy this moment. And I was in my back of my head, I was like, was I enjoying the moment? I feel like I was some days, but some days I was irritated. And some days I had to like pick her up and then take her home and feed her lunch because I thought she was going to get to eat lunch there and they kicked us out before lunch. And so I had to like figure out what to feed her and then throw her in a crib for a nap time so that I
Yeah.
could get on for a meeting. And but after that moment, I just kind of like leaned into it and it
Yeah.
has been such a wonderful process. And it has like major benefits that I wouldn't have even thought about too cuz like I know all the children in her class because for 3 weeks I also went to this kindergarten.
Exactly. So, like, if she comes home talking about someone, you're gonna know who they are.
Oh,
If she comes
absolutely.
home talking about different things, you're gonna know even, like, songs and
I know what the
stories, like
toy
you were
options are.
exposed to. Like
Like, on the way to Kita, we can talk about, like, "Ooh, do you think during" since the month is uni now, um, June, uni, um, "do you think that you'll, uh, like, Meldon, nominate yourself, like, elect yourself, to maybe volunteer to help change the calendar?" Because I know that that's what they
Ooh.
do because I was there when they changed it to May.
Oh,
So
that's
it's like
so cool.
I know that the first week of the month, it's, like, all about the calendar changes, and they're gonna sing the calendar month song, and, like, I know what it looks like a little bit. I know what the excursions look like, and so I can ask, like, "Did you guys make it back in time for lunch, or were you running late because the bus was running late?" And she's like, "The bus was running late," and I was like, "I bet everybody was so hungry," and she's like, "Yeah," and, like, so it's like, we can
Yeah.
talk about it because I know what it looks like, and I go to pick her up and, she'll be, like, busy doing something, and, like, one of the other children will be like, "So and so, your mommy's here." Like,
Aw, that is awesome.
or they'll
So
come, like, a couple
it's kinda like being, like, classroom mom. Like, in
I mean, but
America,
it's like
that's probably the closest, but it's more in depth. Like, I don't know, I'm feeling a little jealous because, we just finished American kindergarten, and, like, something that we ended up having to do because, you get a lot of, like, "How was school?" "I don't know," or "It was fine." And so we try not to just ask that blanket question, we try to ask, like, specific questions. But if you don't know what they're doing all day, it's hard to ask specific questions. So, like, um, the older one's school has an Instagram account. I don't know how I feel about that as far as like privacy, but whatever. So we pulled up the Instagram account and we are like, "Do you know any of these children?" And then he would point and be like, "Yeah, we play soccer together. His name is blah, blah, blah. His favorite character on Paw Patrol is this." And I was like, perfect. So I literally like had like a little list that my husband and I shared of like, this is, this is his friend. And so then it wasn't how was school or did you play soccer at recess? It was, did you and so play?
right.
Is so and
Who
so
did
going to
you
be on
play
your
with?
soccer team? It felt really tangible and that made a massive difference compared to like,
Well, and I feel like there's a
like
certain
weekend teacher.
age where, like, it's all about the questions that you ask, and you can learn, and you get to see the world through your child's age, but a two-year-old, I was shocked because,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I she might tell me that she played with Bluey that day, like, just
Yeah.
because she thinks it makes her more
Reality
interested to
and
watch Bluey, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
reality and fantasy are very fluid at that age.
so,
So,
um, yeah, so I mean, for me, it made me feel really comfortable. It has I mean, all week, my daughter's drop-offs have looked like, we get there, we change her shoes, we get her Wasserflaschen, her water bottle out of her, bag because the first thing you do when you walk in is you change your shoes, but then you take your Wasserflaschen and you put it at the Trinken table, which is the drink table. Um,
have you ever
I
thought
don't
about
the
German words just have lots of extra H's in them? That's what it feels like to
Oh,
me.
that's one thing. That is one thing we need to talk about. Obviously, my daughter's learning a lot of German. She is
Yeah,
also not entirely sure that German is a language, and might be made up because you
that's
can
valid.
now ask her like what a word is. Because I'll be like, "Do you remember what that the word for lion is in German?" And sometimes she remembers the word, and sometimes she doesn't know the word and she makes it up. And you can
Nice.
tell when she's making it up because, for example, like, she just makes the vowels longer and adds an N.
Yep, there we go. I was gonna
So,
say
what is the
we
German
caught
word for plate? Clearly, it's Platen.
Platten.
That is not the German word for plate. I don't know what the
But
German
that's
word for plate is,
really
but that is
good.
not it. But she's just
It's really
learned
good understanding.
right? She's just learned that it sounds funny, but she is
Yeah.
also learning some things like, when she leaves Kita, she doesn't say bye, she says tschüss. When she doesn't say see you tomorrow, she says bis morgen. Or like today, she said bis Montag. She's learned her days of the week, and she will ask like
Aw.
if she's going. to, for example, like she did not go on Monday because it was the Monday of Memorial Day. Um, and so she didn't get to go. And I was like, no, you'll go on Tuesday. And she goes, Dienstag. And I was like, yes,
Aww.
Tuesday, Dienstag.
Well, and
And so
that's
it's like
wild
she's
to me
learning
because,
a lot.
yeah.
What's wild about it?
Well, it's just wild because like we've just mastered over in my corner of the world. We've mastered like not every day is Friday because we figured out a pattern. And by we, I mean my 3-year-old and I new 3-year-old figured out a pattern of like we see brother more often than not on Fridays because he's at school the rest of the week.
So
And
it was
so
a hope that it was Friday.
every day is Friday. And so now it's like, what's the day? And he'll be like, it's Tuesday, almost Friday. And I'm like,
Almost
yeah,
Friday.
you're really bringing some 9 to 5 energy to the table.
But yeah, she also might be just a tiny bit affected by the fact that she and I went to Kita together. Um, because now the big thing to do is to tell her dad all about Kita
Aww.
because he doesn't know Kita the way she does, the way Mama
Yeah.
does. And so she'll be like, Daddy, I went to Kita today. And then he'll be like, Oh, what did you do? And she goes, Well, in the mornings we brush our teeth. And he's like, Yeah, yeah,
I
I
know
know. She
that.
goes, and I eat breakfast out of a blue box. And he's like, This blue box, the one in my hand that I helped your mother pack this morning. But it's just so funny because it's like
She's like, very clearly, you are not in the loop about this. This is Mom and I's secret club.
literally.
But
And
I
so
think that speaks so much to her personality and her heart, though, because like she doesn't want him to feel left out. So she's like, here,
oh
allow
yeah.
me to educate you on this thing that
And
you weren't allowed to join.
she'll come home like singing. She picks up on songs and rhymes very easily.
Oh, I believe it.
And so, like, for example, she came home with the cleanup song stuck in her head.
Oh
And
no. In German.
I am not going to sing on the podcast today, but basically it's Eins, zwei, drei, Spielzeit is vorbei, which is 1, 2, 3, playtime is all done. And though then, and like the next part is like alle Kinder, groß and klein, something something. I don't remember the words, but basically it's like all children, big and small. We clean up the play area, kind of thing. And it rhymes.
Nice.
It was just so
You had no
funny
idea.
because I'm like, okay, I've heard that song before, and so then I like tried to find it like on YouTube so that we could like help her through this moment of crisis where she was just singing the first line
Over and
18
over
times in a
again.
row, and it felt uncomfortable, like
Like she kept stopping, like, I don't know where to go next.
literally, and she gets frustrated with it. So we tried to find it, and so like we're listening to it, and she like goes over to my husband, and she goes, "Daddy," he goes, "Yeah, at Kita they speak German." I was like, and he goes, "I know. Have you learned a lot of German words?" And she goes, "Some."
I think he should stop saying like I know and yeah and be like, "What? Really? This is brand new information."
What has your mother taken you to?
Just see what
Actually,
her reaction is.
I think it'll probably even out because now that we're done with the process, he can do some drop-offs and some pickups.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
And so, like, that will help some too because then he'll start to know more about but it's just so sweet that this is, like, her special thing that she wants to, like, share with him.
Oh,
There's definitely, like, an ownership of the days that she goes and the things that she does, and so for us,
I love
it's just been
that.
such a positive experience. Like, I will probably talk about Agavanong for the rest of my life.
I mean, I remember studying it for that brief little section in college. And I mean, we're talking like a footnote. And it was like one day. And she was like, yeah, I think everyone should do this. This would be great if we did it in America. And then like we never heard about it again until you lived in Germany. And you were like, this process. And I was like, why do I know that word? And I like went back to it because it's the Berlinger or whatever. And I always remembered it was like German, quote unquote. It's not actually German, I don't think. But the
The
Berlinger
Berliner
name,
method is named
Berliner.
after someone.
Yeah, it's after a name, not Berlin itself, but like I always associated it. I was like Berliner
Like,
in
yeah.
Berlin.
But
Um,
yeah, so it's been really positive, and I'm really, really grateful for that, and I can only hope that it continues to be positive. Like, I don't know what happens, like, if one day she just really don't wanna be there, you know what I mean? Like, but
yeah,
also
maybe.
in
We
this
all have those
entire
moments
time,
though.
in these 5 weeks, I actually haven't seen any children have, like, a really hard time. Like, I did see a child go home sick.
Oh.
Like, she ate breakfast and then she threw up and they called her mom, you know, like, so I just know how that process is handled. I saw a girl, in my daughter's class get, like, she was just really, really acting out and really, really having a difficult time, and so I saw her get, like, pulled aside and become, like, the teacher's, like, helper that day to
Aw.
try to, like, get her through whatever frustration she was having, and so, like, I've seen them comfort a child with a skinned knee. I've seen, you know, like, them talk about it, like, I've also seen them let my daughter just continue to wear her shoes on the wrong foot, you know,
Because
because
that's too bad.
that's
That's
her
how you doing
choice,
it too.
and what I was what I was told was, if she is uncomfortable, she should change her shoes.
Valid.
I was like, "Fair."
Yep. Go team.
But then
I can
and
get behind that.
there's those pieces of it where I'm like, "But she's a baby." And then they're like,
Yeah,
"No,
but
she's not. Like, she's learning to be a child. You want her to learn to be a child. She needs to be
oh.
taught to be a child."
See,
And
I
so I'm
love
like,
that.
"Oh
I
my
love that
gosh."
specific phrase because as parents, we so often think like, who are they going to be as adults? But like, they have to learn how to be children too. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
end up with just like this weird, awkward, like, don't know what to do with myself phase where you're not an adult and you're
Well,
not a
and there
baby.
is no
And
prep. Like, there are children who are 6 years old in her KETA class, and in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that, they will be done in kindergarten, and in the fall, they will go to 1st grade, which is, like, traditional
wow.
schooling here. 1st through 4th grade is elementary school, and, like, that is where their schooling will start.
And that's when they'll
And
start learning like the
there's no
actual, like,
prep. There's no nothing. Like,
wow.
there I mean, I think they know how to read because I asked my German tutor, if her children didn't learn how to read until 1st grade, and she said, "No, they learned how to read. They were, like, reading in German and in English before they left kindergarten." But
Yeah.
there's no, like, lesson plan for that.
But
There's no,
children learn
like
best through play. Like, they
yeah.
absorb the things around them, and so I love that respect for that, that seems to be really
Well, and
taken into
even the,
account, and
like,
it feels like
excursions are so
yeah.
important because for the first few weeks, there's, like, literally I remember seeing the news story in the local news that was like, you know, heads up, as we do every year. This is a heads up. We are 3 weeks into the school year, which means that parents are no longer taking their children to school and they will be on the public transportation. Here's what you do if you ever, you know, like see a child who seems to be in distress. Here, you know, like here's
Oh,
like
just
because
they just take it themselves
7
to school
years
now?
old. Yes, 7 years old, 3 weeks into your 1st grade, 7 years old, ride the bus, they walk to school, they bike to school all by themselves.
Wow. But
They
that
have a few weeks with their parents where traditionally their parents will show them, like, the path or the alternative paths or, like, whatever. But other than that, like, with the exception of, like, groups of children going together or sibling groups or anything like that, you don't see parents taking their children to school. And that
wow.
part of that is because for 4 years in kindergarten,
They've been
they
doing it.
every week got on a bus or walked to the park or followed the street rules or, you know, got on a
It
train,
makes
which
me
that's what
think of
they're
all
doing
of
next week,
the
and I don't think my daughter's going on 2
yeah,
buses and a train and a whole
that's
thing,
kind of
and I
hard.
don't know that we're ready for that. I don't know that we're ready for that. I don't know that I'm ready for that. It's a whole
Well, I was
thing.
about to say, and I think you would both have to be ready for it, like, as a parent, and that's what I was gonna say is
I think that in a year
I think this process honors what kids need and also what parents need. And then stretching further into like as an adult in Germany, you can look and see a child on a bus and not immediately panic, because you're like, oh, well, if things were done properly, this child does know what's going on. This child is aware. And if the people around them are operating correctly, we talked about this in a previous episode, like German culture is like, you look out for all of the children. You are all raising the children. The children are all protected by
Right,
all of
you
you.
you don't
Like,
interfere unless their, like, safety is jeopardized or they're
yeah.
uncomfortable, like that, or they ask you for
So,
help. That's another thing is she is already being taught, like, ask for help and you will receive it, like, but at the
yeah.
same time, if you feel comfortable doing something, try it. Like, they're not going to stop
Aw.
her. They will stop her from walking into the street, but they're not gonna stop her from trying to go down the big slide, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And that's,
she's not.
I love that. Like, I have a friend right now, and her 18-month-old is a daredevil. But the thing is, like, he has taught my son so much, because he goes, well, if he can do it, then I probably can do it. And he stopped asking me, can I do this thing? And now we just
Yeah.
kind of pay attention, and we both know, like, hey, it's possible that they're going to get themselves into a sticky situation. And it's also possible that they're not. And so let's just see what happens. And I have
See, and I
absolutely
already
enjoyed
had
seeing
that
that go.
daredevil.
Yeah, you already had a daredevil too,
And
so
now I've got a daredevil with children 4 years, 3.5 years older than her saying,
yeah.
"Your turn."
Oh, I know. The age gap really came through, and this will end on this, but the age gap really came through for me when I popped inside to get popsicles and popped back outside, and older brother was throwing a baseball at younger brother, who was standing there with a bat, just with a huge smile on his face, looking like he was about to hit the ball. And I was like, first off, you're probably not going to be able to hit that with that bat. Second off, you don't have good aim. Let's not throw balls at each other. Like,
Right.
I mean,
T-ball.
I pulled it out and I was like,
T-ball.
yeah, I pulled it out and I was like, here's the tee to play, and also here's a softer ball if you insist on pitching. Like, but we're not going to lob baseballs at each other's faces in the name
That's
of
so
baseball.
amazing.
But it's just like, he really will follow older brother to the ends of the earth. Like, he could just be like, we're kind of grateful that older brother has some pretty good cautiousness built in, because if it was reversed personality wise, the children would be walking off of cliffs, just straight off.
Well, there's the good and the
Well,
bad to all ages, but
I'm really glad that you were able to break down this process, because honestly, now I need to find a book about it so that I can pine over it and feel jealous, because
I
it's
just
amazing.
I hope I can find an elementary school or middle school or whenever we move back to America that will let me attend for the first few weeks.
Right? I would like to go. Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I want to go. Can I know everything about my kids' preschool? Like, that's, as parents, what we want a lot of the times for
Oh yeah,
anxiety.
I mean it
We're
helps
like,
my anxiety just as much.
I want to know all of these teachers, especially with you were going through this at the same time that we were seeing all these news reports of like daycares and preschool workers getting arrested for
Oh
like,
my.
oh, it was awful in the United States. The end of May was, at least in my algorithm for news, there was one every single week of a new preschool or something that got shut down because they were high while they were taking care of kids, or the kids were just being put in
That's
like a room. Oh,
horrifying.
it was horrifying. And so, like, as a parent, you're like, well, how do I know I'm at a good preschool and not a bad preschool? And like, you don't. You don't
You
until you
don't.
do. Like, you don't. And so, like, I love that you really did have this opportunity, and that there's this culture of like, yeah, you should know what's going on, because then you can
Oh.
parent your kid.
And you got to see the care of the adults. Because it's not somebody telling you like, "Oh, we just love taking care of little so and so." It was the day that my daughter was running and fell and skinned her knee, and the teacher got to her first because I'm trying to move slow because I give a nong. Um, Trying to let the teacher help her first, and so the teacher got to her first, and my daughter like threw her arms around her neck,
Aw.
and I just kind of like saw the teacher just like sigh a little bit and
I was
like
like,
put her
yeah,
cheek up against the top of my daughter's head and close her eyes and just kind of
I
breathe her
love it
smell
when
in for a
other
second,
people love your babies.
and I was just like, I literally had tears in my eyes. I was just like, I'm so, and then the teacher like like my daughter gets down and runs back off, and the teacher comes by and she goes, "Sehr gut." Like, "That's a good sign." And I was like,
Great.
"Okay."
Check that box. Moving
I
on.
just having a lot of emotions over here, but they're good. Okay.
All
Uh,
right. Well, we
this
will
has been a
continue
long
to
one.
wish we'll continue
Jeez.
to wish little Kita goer success. And in the United States, we will wish all parents who are stuck with their not in public school children the best as well. Because Lord knows we need it. Thank you.
Oh, you're a good mom.
You're a good mom too. You weren't gonna say it. You were done.
I was rubbing my eye because I'm getting tired.
Bye.